Hello, a couple of weeks ago I was at the UCA Spring Conference and there were a couple of chiropractors there from the States who shared a couple of amazing stories. One thing that they both did, they educated their patients, their practice members, about innate and what innate is all about. Whether you call it your genetic intelligence, your own natural born intelligence that's there within you. They called it innate because they're pretty good with chiropractic philosophy. And so innate's not just about getting better from whether it's back pain or stomach problem or a sports injury. Innate's about getting in contact with yourself, but also getting your nervous system and your brain more in connection with the environment around you and paying attention to everything and all the messages that are coming in to us. Now, our brains have to cope with something like 1 trillion bits of information a second, but only about 30, 40, 50, 60, depending on who you're listening to, only about 30 to 60 bits of those trillion ever reach our consciousness, depending on what various parts of our brain are telling us are important. Now, because of today's society, we're getting further and further out of touch with our bodies. We're suppressing so many symptoms, suppressing so many thoughts and ideas coming from our bodies. And there's a lot of studies that are showing that our gut brain is really where a lot of our instincts are coming from. There's a Japanese businessman I was reading in a self-development book, a Japanese businessman who, after going through a business deal, going through all the information, he'll read through it, have all the meetings, and then he'll mentally chew on this information, and then he'll physically swallow it, and then he'll wait to see what his gut says, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. Now, what these chiropractors are doing is they're telling their patients that it's about getting more in touch with what your body is trying to tell you, what the environment is trying to tell you, and it can help improve your reaction times, all sorts of things. Now, and it's important to listen to what your body's telling it. And even if you may not understand what it's trying to tell you, or why it's telling you what it's telling you, just act upon it because it will usually become apparent. Now, apparently there have been studies that show that chiropractic does increase reaction time. We know from a lot of studies that people tend to be at their peak after an adjustment. And the first story was from a chiropractor in Wisconsin, and she was saying how one of her patients, who comes in with a whole family, I think they'd had their family appointment together, they'd all been adjusted, and they were driving home from the adjustment along the highway, and the mother, she was driving, she got this urge to actually pull off the highway and go a longer route home, more in the country back roads, I suppose. And she didn't know why, but she remembered her chiropractor saying, listen to your innate. And so she did. She listened to her innate. She said, okay, well, I'll just pull off. I'll go the long way home. And literally, as she turned off, there was a massive pile-up of cars just where she would have been had she have stayed on the highway. Now, this isn't some kind of magic or some kind of coincidence. It was obvious that parts of those trillion bits of information trying to reach her brain were telling her that there was something not quite right, that something was going wrong. Her consciousness didn't pick up on it, but her subconscious did, obviously. And she pulled off and avoided an accident, potentially a fatal accident. And she told her chiropractor about it because she said, that's what I thought had happened. It was my innate, it was telling me, and I think it's an important story to spread. And I thank her for spreading that story. And the chiropractor's name is Lona. And then the second story is from was it Brad Glowski? Brad Glowski. He's a chiropractor in Seal Beach, California, and he was sharing a story. He has a lot of sort of firefighters, a lot of policemen that he treats because he thinks it's important for them to be at their best, their nervous system's fully functioning so they can react quickly, so that they can notice things, so they can be as safe and efficient with their jobs as possible with what they're doing. And again, he teaches his patients about innate and being in touch with yourself, your body, and what it's trying to tell you. And one day, this actually happened. This is a personal story to Brad as well, because it happened in one of his children's classes. One of the fathers, he'd recently split up with his wife. I'm maybe getting part of the story wrong, but anyway, I think he was on various medications because he was exhibiting psychotic behaviour. Divorced, he was very upset, but he brought the kid into school, and then after leaving the school he actually murdered his wife or ex-wife. And things had happened very fast. They knew that a murder had happened. Police were called, and then one of the policemen was actually one of Brad's patients, and he was thinking, okay, what should we do? Okay, I think they had a good idea about who it was who'd done the murder, and they knew who they were looking for. And so they thought, well, we know he dropped off the son at school, so he started at school, started driving, trying to retrace the footsteps. And he suddenly got this sensation that there was something not quite right, something a little bit odd out of his field of view, as he was driving along the highway. And he just thought, Dr. Glow said, listen to your innate, we're not quite sure what it's for. And so upon thinking about what his chiropractor had told him, the policeman, while hunting for a murderer, goes off on a chiropractic hunch, basically, after innate telling him to investigate this thing. Anyway, it turns out that this, whatever was happening that was unusual, immediately led to the arrest of this gentleman, and the story unfolded that this guy was actually on the way back to school to go and murder the teacher, and that was in the classroom where his son was, but also where one of Dr. Brad's children was as well. And so chiropractic really can save lives. It's not just about what happens in the office. It's not about just getting rid of symptoms. It's about getting nervous systems really functioning to their height and getting people aware that they should be listening to their bodies, because you never know what the body's going to tell you, and it really can save lives. So whether you're a chiropractor or a practice member, a patient, or whether you are thinking chiropractic's not for you or chiropractic is for you, please take these stories to heart. And if you want your nervous system fully functioning, make sure you see a chiropractor or an osteopath, I'm going to be fair, regularly.